Alright, welcome. Let's take a look at nodes, pools, and virtual servers. So first, this is the basic of how to configure devices to be load balanced in an F5. So you may have to see the actual representation of what I am talking about in order to understand it a little bit better. So let me go over the discussion first, and then we will cover the graphical part coming up, as well as some images of a standard setup. So nodes. What is a node? A node is a device represented by an IP address, typically a server. A server assigned an address 192.168.1.100. Another server, server B, 192.168.1.101. Server C, 192.168.1.103. And that's what you would consider a node. A node can be associated to multiple pools. So when you take a look at pools, you can have server A associated to pool A, which is HTTP. You can have server A associated to pool B, which is tied into port 443, HTTPS. So again, what is pool? Pool is a group of pool members, a group of nodes, members that host the same information and have their own method of load balancing. A virtual server. What is a virtual server? It is the primary mechanism to process traffic. They do contain a name, a port, an IP address association. Typically a public IP is www.google.com. Let's use that example. We'll come down, hit the pool, and then based on its load balancing method, flow down and hit a node. So there are different features as to how the traffic is maintained. Let's take a look at a picture real quick. So here we have an example of a pool, virtual server, and a node. So the virtual server, what would that be in this representation? It would be google.com with an IP of 211.235.123.54. And these individual nodes down here would be individual servers or individual devices that have these IPs associated in your network. So server A may be this IP, server B may be this IP, server C may be this IP, server D may be this IP. These all could be one server. You can have virtual servers. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least physically. You could have one box with 4 VMs on it, or 4 boxes with no VMs on it. So again, end user at host 192.168.1.1 wants to go to google.com. So they traverse the internet, hit their public service provider allocated a public IP 68 dot something as an example. They then come to google.com. They hit google.com's router. They're trying to reach google.com, so the router forwards them to IP address 211.235.123.54 on their big IPs. So here we have the virtual server. We then go and hit the pool that 211.235.123.54 is associated to, and it's 10.10.2.1.2.3.4.5. Depending on the load balancing method that you have set up, it will distribute your connections out to here. So when you go out to google.com, you may be hitting server B, you may be hitting server D, you may be hitting server C, you may be hitting server A, dependent upon how load balancing is set up at google.com and how they have it set up if they are using a load balancing method. But that's pretty much the basics. Virtual server, we then go down to the configured pool, and which we have round robin set up, and then we go down to the individual nodes and hit those IPs. So let's take a look at this from a F5 perspective to see what's going on here. So here we have the GUI. Left hand pane, we have the local traffic icon. When I click that up here, and we have nodes, pools, virtual servers. Let me show you how to create a node. Just very simple. Let's create a set of nodes here. Server A. Won't worry about health monitors yet. Looks like I did not have the proper naming convention for server A. Let's go in tandem. 26 server B. No spaces allowed. And let's just do 27 server C. And let me finish. So here we have a list of nodes. We have machine A, machine B, server A, server C. We have some basic functionality here. We do have color codes. There are a bunch of color codes that F5 does. Right now it's saying it doesn't know if there's a service enabled on it. We can disable a node from here. We can force it offline. We also have health monitors that we can set up. You can set it up based on ports or ICMP. It's entirely dependent on how you want to set it up. So for now, I'll click none. We don't want to set up any type of health monitors. But that's pretty much how you configure a node. You have servers 1 through 3, 1 through 3 that you want to load balance or potentially load balance to. Have some type of traffic management too. Let's go out to pools. Let's create a pool. Let's see, test servers ABC. And here we come into health monitoring. So however you have your server set up, we go back here. So if I'm on google.com and I have users trying to access 10.10.2.1, 10.10.2.3, google.com says on port 80, which is HTTP. So again, we want to set up health monitor, and what that does is it checks against the servers in your pool. It checks against port 80 to make sure port 80 is up. If it is not up, it will send an alert. It'll mark the node is down, and it will route traffic out to other remaining nodes that are up. So let's go to load balancing method. We'll set up round robin, which will choose every other one, and we will add these servers in manually. And we want it to again reach these boxes 10.10.125 on port 80, 10.10.126 on port 80, and you can set it up, customize it. Typically these are the default devices that F5 has set up on which it wants to load balance against. Click finished. So again, we have different status symbols here. Offline is these are enabled, so if we were to go to pool member A and try to reach that, there's a problem here, and I will generate that same problem here, as these boxes are not enabled. So I enabled those boxes. Again, because there is no actual boxes, and these devices aren't serving any local pages, we will have a red message or a red icon that shows the members are down. So let's create a service, virtual server. Want to enable port 80, which will default to port service port 80, and an IP 2.3. Okay, generate a IP for that. So if I go to google.com, it should translate to that public IP. We're going to set up a basic configuration here. You have different options here, which performance-based, how you have your system set up. Definitely want TCP, one connection profile. We'll take a look at that later on in advanced settings. We'll look at the different profiles you don't need to pay attention to for now. We do have iRules that we're going to talk about later. And let me scroll down to make sure you can see this. Default pool. Which members or what group of members do you want to serve for this virtual server? Let's do the server we want to set it up against. Persistence. We'll talk about this here in a little bit, and fallback, and everything looks good. And so again, the availability right now is down. So in theory, if users wanted to go to google.com and I was serving an IP address, all users would come through this virtual server, down through my pools, and then down to my nodes, 25, 26, and 27. You can see the different options there. And that is, in a nutshell, nodes, pools, and virtual servers. Again, device is represented by an IP address. These devices can represent different services. So this box, 25 box, can have a health check against it on port 443, port 21. You can load balance FTP traffic, load balance TFTP traffic, load balance whatever traffic you would like this node to serve as. Again, pool, let's see, test servers, ABC, HTTPS. So you monitor this traffic against HTTPS. I want to set up round robin traffic. And we want to set up those same servers against port HTTPS, B, and C. Finished. At this point, I want to set up health checks to monitor against FTP traffic. We can go back and adjust the health monitoring. It looks like it just will do a TCP check on these boxes. And again, associating multiple nodes to different pools in the event that this box has an FTP application running, has a HTTPS app running, and a port 80 box, or port 80 port running. Because again, the box could have an issue with FTP, but not necessarily an issue with its web application. The same against port 443. For whatever reason, HTTPS is not working, but FTP is working. That assists you with troubleshooting the problem. at a server level. It helps your server guys troubleshoot the problem. Well, hey, I have port F21 up, but I don't have port 80 up on the box. Can you take a look at the services, please? Can you, just questions to ask and to troubleshoot along with that. Again, just demonstrating nodes can be associated to multiple groups. And that will conclude the virtual servers, nodes, and pools.